Hello friends and fashion lovers, welcome and welcome back. Thank you for clicking on this video. I'll be showing you how to make this lovely maxi dress. For my fabric, I used 2 1/4 yard of fabric that is by 60 inches. And I'm going to go ahead and fold my fabric in half for my dress. So right here, I'm going to be marking 1 inch away from my selvage edge, and I'm going to place the length of my dress. You want to make sure that you have your desired dress length plus 2 inches for seaming and hemming allowance. So determine how wide your fabric should be for this dress. So I'm going to be showing you how I determine half of this, but you're going to double it. So don't forget my fabric is on fold. So you want to mark half of your hip measurement plus seaming allowance. You can add ease if you like. I added about ½ inch of ease. So after that marking, you're going to add your desired sleeve length to it. The sleeve length just starts from the end of the shoulder down to where you want it to end. So right here, I am marking half of my hip measurements plus my seaming allowance. So I'm just going to extend the line so that it can all make sense. Once again, my fabric is on fold, so I'm marking half of my hip measurements plus seaming allowance. Now that I have that out of the way, I'm going to fold it in half. So now this is 4 fold right here. So right here I have 4 fold, and that is the body of my dress. So it's basically how you would stitch it up if you were making it to fit your hip, if you were using your hip measurement to make a dress. So now for the other part of the dress, from that line you had marked where your fold over ends, you're going to mark your desired sleeve length plus hemming allowance. My desired sleeve length is 11 inches and my hemming allowance is 1 inch. So I have 12 inches there. So now that I have all that sorted out, the body of my dress and the sleeve length, I'm going to notch the center point. Please note where the center is. So with the center point notch, I'm going to draw a guideline. Don't forget the upper part is the selvage. The selvage to selvage is 60 inch in length. So I had to mark 1 inch away from my selvage. If you're using an African print, it's just that you would need more yardage. That's just what it means, but you can follow the same steps. So from there, I have my guideline. So I am going to place half of my shoulder width measurement, just like you would for your regular dresses. Half of my shoulder width measurement is 7.5 inches. And then I'm going to mark my armhole depth. So my armhole depth is 8.5 inches. So I'm just going to mark it right here. So whatever I have on my shoulder, I'm just going to transfer it here. So I would be able to make a straight line for my armhole depth. So at this point, you can go ahead and decide if you want to mark your shoulder slope, but I'm not going to do that. Now I'm going to go ahead and mark neck width for this dress. The neck width I'm using is 2.5 inches. 2.5 inches work just fine for most sizes, except you're quite busty. You could make it not more than 3 inches. With that, I'm just connecting my armhole at this point. So just go ahead and connect yours if you're following along. So remember, I have my neck width, which is 2.5. I also have a shoulder width, which is half my shoulder width measurement, and my armhole. That's just basically it. Along the armhole, I'm going to mark how off the shoulder I want this part to be. So go there at your armhole, just mark how low you want your thigh sleeve to be. So I marked 5 inches, about ½ inch seaming allowance. I want it to finish off at 5 inches. So now I'm going to place notches. At my neck width, I'm placing a notch there. Don't forget, I'd already placed a notch at the center of my dress. Then I'm going to cut this out. Please note that I'm only cutting at one part. I'm cutting out the upper part of my dress. I don't know if my explanation makes sense, but you can see how I'm cutting it. Then go ahead and notch. You want to notch where your off shoulder will be, where your sleeves will, your tie sleeve will be. So don't forget to place your notches because it just makes life a whole lot easier later. So I haven't done this with my notches present. I'm just going to open this piece up. So it's time to mark out the neckline. So I'm just going to extend that my guideline that I had marked initially. I didn't mark on this side, it was on the fold over side that I had marked. You're going to probably have 3 notches, which is the neck width notches, which will be 2, and the center notch, which would just be in the middle of the neck width. So I'm going to just extend the center notch so that it will be visible for you to see. I know the fabric is colorful. So to each side you are going to have your neck width notches, which is 2.5 inches on both sides. So now from that guideline you are going to mark the neck depth of 3 inches. These 3 inches include your seaming allowance, so you don't need to give an extra seaming allowance. So just mark 3 inches there, and you're going to curve it to the part that you had notched, which is the off shoulder part. If you didn't notch, you can remeasure it, but I had notched, so there is no need for this part. I had notched mine, but if you did not, so just remeasure it and you connect it. You can use freehand to do this connection, or you can use your curve ruler. Whatever can aid you with the curve, just use that. So now, having traced out my new neckline now, so I'm just going to cut it out. So now that it's cut out, it's time for me to work on the other part, which is the sleeve part. So to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and place my fabric again on fold. So if you wanted to have a shoulder slope, let's assume you've already marked out your shoulder slope. So now from wherever your shoulder slope is, for me, I didn't bother marking out the shoulder slope. It's a free dress. So I'm going to mark my sleeve opening. I marked 10 inches. It's going to finish up as 9 inches because I'm going to use ½ inch to stitch at the upper part and the ½ inch at the lower part. So I'm coming in by 2 inches all the way to the hem of the dress. And then I am cutting out my dress. So you come in by 2 inches all the way to the hem of the dress and just cut it out, and then you're done with the cutting of the dress. Now for the neckline, you can use a bias step to finish that, but I'm going to be using a facing. Before I cut out my facing, let me show you the tie I'm going to be using. Now it has a tie sleeve, so I'm just dividing one of my cutouts and I'm going to be using it as my tie for my sleeve. So basically the width is up to you and the length is totally up to you, but for me, I am using the length of 28 inches, so you can give it a slight slant by the end. So I'm going to just place it right side facing and I will stitch both, and this will serve as my tie sleeve. For my facing, I just folded my leftover, that's for both the back and the front, and I'm just placing it like so, making sure it's enough. So this is just it. You can do a different style, it doesn't really matter. It's just to help the neckline look neat. So it's stitching time. To stitch this dress is very easy. Just place your facing right side facing like so. You're not going to be stitching the armhole, you're just going to be stitching the neckline, and then you stitch the shoulder. And for the tie sleeves, you're just going to place them right side facing and you stitch in place. So I've stitched, and this is my sleeve opening, which I haven't hemmed yet, and this is the facing. So I'm going to include my tie sleeves in it. So this is my tie. Just place it directly under that stitch part, and you're going to use your facing to cover it, and make sure you pin this in place along the armhole, and you're repeating it for the second side. Make sure that you have a little bit of this tie peeping out, because the armhole is not straight. It's going to have a slight curve, so it has to mimic that curve. So you need to have extra, which you are going to trim away after stitching. And when you finish stitching, it will look something like this. Then I'm going to understitch and stitch close the side of the dress and hem the bottom of the dress as well as the sleeve. And this is the finished dress after stitching. You can see how simple that was, and it's very beautiful and elegant. Thank you for watching to this point. If you haven't subscribed, please click on that subscribe button for more videos. Thank you. Bye. See you in the next tutorial.